Okay, before we continue with Sfira, somebody asked an interesting question today. In fact, two people asked it. Interesting. They wanted to know if they can order chametz today to be delivered after Pesach. Now, the question is like this. I said, are you paying for it before? No. Because if they pay for it before, that's the worst problem. The question is, they're ordering it today, they're not going to pay for it until it comes, and they're ordering it for after Pesach, Friday, or, in fact, one guy was running a shul, so he says, we need stuff for the Kiddush. For Shabbos, we need chametz for the Kiddush. So can we order it today, and it will be delivered after Pesach? So the answer is, no, not kosher companies. You can get stuff from Ralph's, from Costco, whatever. So the answer is you can't. Realistically speaking, you can't. Even if maybe halachically you're not going to legally be owning it because you're not acquiring it. But the fact that you're making, in fact, it's brought down in Sfarim, many great tzaddikim didn't even say the word chametz on Pesach. It's an improper word on Pesach. So for somebody to come and order chametz on Pesach, for after Pesach, is really a no-no. Some interesting, but two people asked it today. Okay, coming back to Sfira Seimer, we discussed already about, the counting of the Omer, how you do it. But we know that historically and halachically, the days of Sfira Seimer are sad days. Because the Gemara said that Rabbi Kiva had 24,000 students, and they all died during the time of Sfira. So there's a bunch of different opinions in halacha when was the 33 days that they died. Some people say they died from the beginning of Sfira Seimer until Lag BaOmer. So therefore many people, like the Sephardic community, they only keep the laws of Sfira until Lag BaOmer. After Lag BaOmer, they go have weddings, they take haircuts, do all that. Not Chol Hamoed. Chol Hamoed is a different din. That's a din of Chol Hamoed. You're not allowed to cut your hair.
No, I'm saying for music.
No, Chol Hamoed, most opinions in halacha say that even if you keep Sfira the whole time, Chol Hamoed, you're allowed to listen to music. I saw there are very few opinions that say no, but they're basically outnumbered. And the minig by Chassidim definitely Chol Hamoed, you listen to music. But when Pesach is over, then the issue of music starts. So when do these? So some people have a minig, even the Frum, let's say the Ashkenazic Litvish Elam, they still do weddings in the month of Nisan. They'll still do weddings in the month of Nisan. So they'll start from Rosh Chodesh Iyar. From Rosh Chodesh Iyar, then they'll start the laws of Sfira. Some people start from the beginning and then they stop at Lag BaOmer. Some people, like according to Kabbalah, our minig is that we go from the beginning through the end, except Lag BaOmer, then we're allowed to listen to, besides Chol Hamoed. Then Lag BaOmer, you're allowed to listen to music. But now there's an interesting shaila in halacha. Let's say the Moshe Feinstein has a tshuva about this. Can an Ashkenazi Rav, who keeps Sfira after Lag BaOmer also, can he perform a Sephardic wedding for somebody who's Sephardic, and then but can he perform such a wedding? Because Ashkenazim don't make a wedding after Lag BaOmer. So he writes, many other poskim also write, but he writes that an Ashkenazic rabbi could do a wedding after Lag BaOmer. But I mentioned many times, there's an interesting story that I was privy to, not after the fact. And that was, this guy was getting married after Lag BaOmer. And he went over to the Rebbe for $2 2 weeks before Pesach. That's when he was in New York, because he was leaving. And he told the Rebbe he's getting married after Lag BaOmer. So the Rebbe looked at him, and the Rebbe said, we don't do weddings after Lag BaOmer. So the guy said to the Rebbe that Rebbe Shlomo Schwartz said I could. So the Rebbe smiled and said, ask him again. Ask him again. And to his credit, the guy got married before Pesach. Wow. He worked it out. I know who the guy is. I spoke to him about it. He told me the case. Besides Shlomo Schwartz told me the story. You know what it is? Huh? Okay, whatever. But I know who the guy is. I think he lives in Israel now, whatever. But so the Rebbe said to him, ask him again. And he asked him again, so obviously he arranged that the wedding was before Lag BaOmer. Now even in halacha there's two opinions. Can you make a wedding the night of Lag BaOmer, or do you only wait until the day? So originally there was a time that the Rebbe said you should not make it night of Lag BaOmer, but the Rebbe changed because there's a need for not enough places for weddings, whatever. So the Pearl now, even in New York, they do make weddings the night of Lag BaOmer. But you can't do a wedding, you can't have the music and anything until after nightfall, which nowadays is very late. It's like 9 o'clock, you can, before 8:30 or something, you can't do a chuppah, you can't have music, you know. And then the question is, how much before Shavuos can you do a wedding? So the Rebbe writes, in halacha it says, the 3 preparatory days, which is the 3rd, 4th, and 5th of Sivan. But the Pearl now, and that I know the Rebbe was maskum. I know a case that they asked the Rebbe about making a wedding, then the Rebbe said, you have a Rav in the family, ask him, and he said, yeah, anyway, so the Rebbe was maskum to that. But now, many places, including New York, they make weddings starting from Rosh Chodesh, Sivan, which is questionable, but Lepel, there are opinions in halacha that are lenient, and so they start making weddings in then. Now, what's with, that's one thing you can't do Lag BaOmer. During Sfira. Another thing we don't do during Sfira is, we don't make a shachianu on new fruits or new clothing if you make a shachianu. You don't make a shachianu except, and this we didn't know for many, many years, by the 3 weeks, the Rebbe writes in Sefer Minhagim that we don't make a shachianu even on Shabbos. That's between Shavuos B'Tammuz and Tisha B'Av. By Sfira, nobody knew. We didn't know any either way. So my days, when we grow up, nobody made shachianu on Shabbos either, on fruits or things like that. There was the Rabbonim Aroshim were in by Yechidus. It's already edited, Yechidus and the Rebbe said to them clearly that on Shabbos during Sfira we do make shachianu. So then the minute became that we make a shachianu during, like if somebody has a birthday during the Omer, so there's a custom, you make a shachianu on a fruit that day. So if you have a birthday middle of Sfira, you can't do it during Sfira, so you do it the Shabbos before, Shabbos after, but you do it on Shabbos. Lag BaOmer you can make, Lag BaOmer you could, the dinim of Sfira don't apply, except halachically you could take haircuts. In our circles, the minig is we don't take haircuts. Not only that, even though halachically you can take a haircut, Shleishis Me'Agbola, the 3 days before Shavuos, but the Rebbe Rashab was not happy from people that took a haircut until Erev Shavuos. So our custom is we don't take haircuts until Erev Shavuos. It depends what the clothing is. There's no official Chabad minute, but that's on the fruit.
Could you buy
fruits?
Clothing.
If you don't make a shachi on it, you could. If you do make a shachi on it, you can't.
Everyone does, you know.
Is it the bracha or the buying new clothes?
It says in halacha, the Ramah says about you don't sew clothing. The pearl, even in the times when you don't make shachianu, okay, but clothing that, certain clothing, let's say shirts and pants or underwear that you don't make a shachianu, never, so people could buy. If it's something that you need a shachianu, you don't do. So for instance, let's say for argument's sake, the reason why people don't make shachianu on clothing, because years ago people bought a new suit every 5 years, you know what I mean, every 10 years. Today they buy a few times a year. But what happens if it's something you don't buy often? It's a brand new talis. You don't buy a new talis every year. Talis cotton maybe. You don't buy a new talis every year. So who says you can't make a shachianu in halacha? If you have simcha, you should be able to make. It doesn't say anywhere in Chabad Minhagim that we don't make shachianu on clothing. It doesn't say anywhere. People don't because they buy clothing so often. It's not a simcha by them.
So pants and shirts for sure.
For sure you can buy during Sfira. Expensive things, even if you hold, let's say you don't make a shchiona on clothing, but you shouldn't buy a new hat or a new kapota or a new talis or something which is expensive. Huh? I'm saying even if you don't, but it's something that really you don't buy, twice a year. Or whatever.
When new pistachios come out, fresh raw pistachio, if you eat pistachio the whole year, do you have to say shachian on that pistachio?
If it's a raw pistachio, which is a different type of pistachio and it's fresher, then you do make a shachiana. Let's say you eat, let's say there's different types of melons, okay, whatever. So if you eat one melon, then you eat a variance of that melon, then you also make a shachiana. I understand, but this is a fresher one, it's a better one. But the minig is b'chal, people don't make shechionas on nuts. That's not Chabad min, I'm saying b'chal, on halacha, people don't make no. I just realized you were talking about a nut, so you don't. Okay, shidduchim, you can get married, you can make engagements as long as there's no music. Okay, now haircuts. Okay, so we said, Chabad custom is you don't take a haircut until Erev Shavuos itself. Halachically you take like Omer. Halachically you could take, according to many opinions, in the month of Nisan still. Okay, we said even upsharnish you don't do. Okay, but what, by the way, it's interesting. What happens, like by Svardim and a bris milah, they make shechianu, and say a pinyan aben, you make a shechianu. So let's say, believe it or not, kids are born during Sfira and they have a pinyan aben. So those mitzvah ones you do make. Let's say by Svardim they make a bracha. It's the Rambam's opinion that you make a shechianu and a bris milah, because it is a mitzvah. Even if you have a kid every year, it's only once a year, but still it's a... If you have twins, then you have a shaila.
A new talis you can make one?
If somebody feels good by buying a new talis, they could. But, no, what were we just saying? Oh, no, about pinyan aben. And a pinyan aben you make a shachianu, even during Sfira. Or like we said, if you make a shachianu by a bris, then you make shachianu during Sfira Omer also. By the way, it's just interesting, the argument whether you by Svardim make a shachianu on a bris and Ashkenazim don't, is there's an argument between the Rishonim and Achreinim. The Rambam and the Bais Yosef holds, you make a shachianu and mitzvah smila because it's a big mitzvah, it's a simcha. The other Rishonim, the Ashkenazi Sheposkim, and the Ramah holds, you don't make a shachiona on a bris milah because there's pain to the kid. The kid has pain. So therefore, on something that's a pain, you don't make shachiona. There's an interesting shayla in halacha. The first time a sheikh shechs, does he make shachiona or not? It's a big shayla in halacha. Do you make a shachiona or not? And most poskim say you don't, because when you shech, you cause animal pain. And that's why even those people that make shachianu on clothing do not make a shachianu on shoes. What happens if you buy $1,000 today? They what? $10,000? What do shoes cost today? Yeah. Anyway, whatever. They buy a very expensive pair of shoes. You still don't make a shachianu, because on leather things you don't make a shachianu because again the animal is killed, so there's pain in it, and therefore you don't make a shachianu and things like that. Okay. Also in Shabbos, starting this coming Shabbos, by the way, we start saying Pirkei Avos after Mincha. According to our custom, we say it all the way through until Rosh Hashanah. 1 second, let me just see. Okay, now one more thing.
But by the 9 days we can't say Shechina on Shabbos, right?
Right, that the Rebbe writes clearly in Hogam that Ben HaMetzarim, and the 3 weeks, even Shabbat, but that's much stricter. Sfira is much more lenient halachically than the 3 weeks. 3 weeks is mourning over the Bais Hamikdash. This is mourning over the destruction of the base of Rabbi Kiva's 24,000 students. But there's a lot of leniency. Let's say little kids are taking music lessons. They're not playing professionally, they're just learning how to play. So halachically, during the Sfira Semi, you're allowed to play. They can...
Someone who's an oven within the 7 days, Shiva, sitting Shiva, can they make Shoftim on Shabbos? Is what we're learning about.
They should make on Shabbos, no. No.
Because Rambam says that only things that are private, you have to. So I guess that's private.
In Halacha it says if an Ovel is reading the Megillah, the Ovel during the year, yes, somebody else does the Shachyon, not him. So nothing has to do with publicly saying it versus privately saying it. But here it still has a din of Avelis. And Avelis B'tzinis still goes on. Okay, what?
I'm asking Shabbos.
I'm just giving you an example. The guy who's an Ovel doesn't even say Shechiyona on Purim if he's reading the Megillah for everybody.
Because it's not Shabbos, I'm just saying if it's Shabbos, you should be able to say the Shechiyona.
No, one thing has nothing to do with the next. Okay, that's basic. Okay, Machachina so my Kim Shivla Gal Tere Bachanan Kashem Dot the Bach Zak Sofi